2020 has been a year like no other, and the manufacturing industry has felt its impact. It forced the industry to keep people's agenda on priority and in turn redefine its limitation. As a result, manufacturing companies are undertaking digital transformation, setting up smart processes, and streamlining employee life cycle on one hand, and on the other hand, adopting new age performance management practices like OKR with even their blue collar employees. In many ways, manufacturers are seeking ways to re architect workers, and the workplace. Good morning, everyone. This is Shruti Singh, and welcome to an exciting webcast session on the topic Mastering Workforce Dynamics in 2021 Manufacturing Edition, brought to you by People Strong and People Matters. Quick update before we get started. If you have any question during this session for our speakers, please feel free to use the chat window. We will bring them up towards the end of the session during the 15 minutes reserved for the Q&A. So stay tuned to your chat box and keep posting the questions that you have for our speakers. Now, without a further ado, let me get to our speakers for today's session. We have with us today Ashish Anand, who is the Chief Human Resources Officer, SAR Group of Companies. Hi, Ashish. Welcome on board. It's great to have you over.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We also have Abhishek Arora, who's the Vice President HR Carlsberg India Private Limited. Hi, Abhishek. Thank you for coming over.
Hi. Thanks, Shruti.
Moving on to our next speaker, we also have with us Ajay Agarwal, who's the Vice President Operation and KAT B2B Sales, Nilkamal Limited. Ajay, thank you for coming on board and giving us your time.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
And today's moderator for the session who will be holding the mic and having the conversation with the speakers, Prakash Rao, who's the Chief Operating Officer, SAS People Strong. Welcome on board, Prakash.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
So without further ado, let me hand over the mic to you, Prakash. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Shruti. Thank you. Thanks, People Matters team. Good afternoon, everyone. We have an action-packed 60 minutes in front of us. So what we wanted to do was, instead of having a lot of presentations that we share and sharing screens, we thought we could keep this in a conversation mode. I've got some exciting questions and something that we could learn from that I'm going to pose to each of the panelists here. And we'll try to ensure that we keep these question answers between us for 45 minutes. And I'll ensure that there are a good 15 to 10 minutes at the end that we can have a question and answer, right? So without much ado, let's get started. I think one of the biggest news that's come out, I'm not sure how many of us have been paying attention to over the last 1 week, has been the outlook for the year FY22, where they're saying that 12.5% is the GDP growth of India that's going to happen. That's going to make us the fastest growing economy amongst the G20 countries, which is going to be a great matter of pride for all of us, right? And I think one of the industries which is really pushing this GDP growth in the right direction has been the manufacturing industry, because while the pandemic hit us exactly a year ago now, the people who got back to work sooner than later were people from the manufacturing sector. The people who helped us to keep us on our toes were the manufacturing sector, because these people found a way of going to work, taking care of their safety, taking care of their health as well, and showed us how to move towards unlock, right? So that's what they've done. And just a couple of numbers for all of you for manufacturing sector. I was just going through the data that the government has released in Jan 2021. They think that there's a huge domestic market in India with a rapidly increasing middle class population, which is driving the growth towards this GDP as well. And the government has kept an outlay of 7,500 crores for IT hardware, PLI, and manufacturing. Through policy intervention, they want India to become the potential hub for manufacturing, not just for the current things that we manufacture, but also for things like IT, hardware, and a lot of different things. Plus, the government also feels that with the young working population being more interested in the manufacturing sector, they expect the capacity utilization to grow up as well. So capacity utilization is a term that is used typically in manufacturing, where what they do is they look at what is the factory's capacity of production and how much of that is being utilized. And just to give you some numbers, this data was on a downward trend till last some time back with around 63, 65%. but the government expects by Q3 of the next financial year for this to go up to around 78, 79%. That would be the highest it would have been over the last, I could say, post 2011-12, that would have been the highest capacity utilization that it could go to. So now, what is fueling such amazing growth in manufacturing, and what are things that they're doing is what we'll ask our panelists with, right? Let me start off with you first, Ashish. Right, so manufacturing has evolved so much. We all thought that the financial impact of the pandemic is going to be huge on the manufacturing sector, but that's not been the case. So, what are some of the top changes that you've seen, or what have you done which has helped you survive this pandemic or become better, if I could say so?
Okay, thanks, Prakash. Thanks, Prakash, for having me here and the People Matters team. So you have to understand one broad theme in the country. So if you look at the world population and if you dissect the whole world in consumption and non-consumption economy, so India is at the top end of the consumption economy. Okay, and there are real consumption which happens. There is a real large population which is there. Our pop strata of the population is between 25 35. Very large number of people are there. So you have to understand it's a consumption led economy in that. If you look at I would actually look at it this way: is that if you look at last 17, maybe last 24 quarters of the data, the GDP has been on a downward slide, and that's for a variety of other reasons, but that's besides the point. If you look at last year when the pandemic happened, and absolutely everybody was at a standstill. That was the first time, I think, if you look at the whole world had come to a standstill and everybody was at equal level platform. In any other crisis, if you look at in the world, if you look at Great Depression of America in '84 or 2008, barring one sector, two sector, it had some impact. This is the first time everybody at a halting strategy. Now there is a sentiment also which happened, is that the whole pandemic originated out of China, and the world got hammered very badly and everyone was suffered. So one is that India has an advantage of a consumption economy. There is a real consumption which happens. The second is that there is a growing understanding and appreciation of having China plus one strategy for every manufacturer in the world. That's where we are in the right sweet spot of the manufacturing. Now, if you come to think of it, what we did during the pandemic time, and how did we come and do that? So we have 2-3 manufacturing lines of businesses where large manufacturing happens. We are the third largest manufacturer in the market of the battery brand under the brand called Livguard. We have a consumer appliance business with the brand called Livpure. When the pandemic happened, and of course 50-60 days we didn't had anything to do. Once the economy starts to reopen, or before the economy started to reopen, everybody had two fear in that point in time. Is that life and livelihood? If whether you have to live well, and then you have to have a livelihood to survive in that. And it's right at the center of every crisis. If you are able to address these core needs of anyone, I think so. What we did at the beginning of the pandemic, when it started, we actually spoke to all employees and said that what we are going to do is that, hey, listen, it's a health crisis, it's a humanitarian crisis. We had no control over it. So here is what we should do about it. And we are in a difficult situation. There's no economy, there's no business which is happening. Is that let's contribute in making this life a little more easy for everyone. Okay. So what we asked people is that, would you like to variabilize a little bit of your salary from your certain level and above? That can you put your variable pay? Can you make your part of the fixed salary into variable pay? And if we do a basic minimum of the work during the year, we'll give the entire money back to you. And during the year, because of the pandemic, nobody will lose job in this financial year. So what essentially we did was that while all the news was there in the market, is that there is a job cut, salary cut, etc., etc. He said, just let's go through a little bit of hardship on a scale of 1 to 10. Let's go on hardship of only 1 in a personal life, 1.5 at a personal life, and let's sail through that. So I think, Prakash, that brought a lot of psychological belongingness to the whole ecosystem. Is that we took care of life, we took care of livelihood. So there is no in that. when the economy started to open up, there is a real opportunity. That's what I started to say, that there is a consumption economy, and the consumption was there. So we were right at the center of the opportunity to capture in the businesses where during the pandemic year, this financial year, we have grown close to 40% as well over the last year. So that's the kind of opportunity we did, and we did all kind of safety measures. Whatever you can think of, we did everything. I mean, there's nothing to. Uh, Nothing that we left. I hope I was able to make some sense out of it.
Prakash,
Thanks, Ashish. I think the point on
Prakash,
life
you're
and
in mute.
livelihood was yes. Thanks, Ashish. I think the point on life and livelihood was really well made. So now to a different industry, Abhishek, right? Carlsberg. There was these memes and jokes going around that with the queue that people had to buy alcohol once it got opened out, that just drove the economy a little forward, right? There were jokes of this much percentage of the growth is happening because of this. So it's been an interesting time for you, right? So so how did it impact you, and how have you guys adjusted in your industry?
So we actually, I'll build where Ashish left in terms of the macro indicators. Way we approached was that the problem has come, and this crisis is health crisis, as rightly said, but there was a feeling of helplessness across because nobody knew anything. But once we were actually hearing the news of lockdown in China, what we were actually, and I'm talking as individuals or professionals or intellectuals, we were like, we could never imagine that India can get into a lockdown. But ultimately that moment came, and then there was this feeling of helplessness, and that's what we tried actually attacking. So we got into a communication mode in terms of, okay, fine, whatever it is. We incidentally didn't touch even at that time. We gave the assurance that whatever the problems are, we will sail it through together. We will not. We didn't get into the variabilization of pay. We said it is too early. We are not committing anything. We will take stock of the situation, but this knee jerk we tried avoiding. We said we will review situation in July. What was needed in factories, actually, there are essential services. It's a continuous process. The beer was in the tank. The boilers are running. So all that stuff. So factories were operating actually every day, even that time, not producing. And that's where we put all the protocols. We were learning, rather the whole of the country was learning in terms of what to do, what kind of the safety practices can be. And we actually overdid it, as Ashish also said, that whatever can be thought of, because we didn't have any idea what exactly would prevent. So we said that more is a better solution than actually trying to apply logic. So that's how we tried addressing the 2-3 myths which actually got broken in our minds. Blue collar, which technically, though as HR professionals, we have been always saying that at the end of the day, there is a theory Y in play, and they are the ones who produce, and it is a question wherein, as management approach, are we able to engage them and actually leverage their capability and their commitment and ownership. They actually they were the ones who were on the forefront, and that's where whatever little bit of doubt people were having in mind that there is a socio-economic angle to it, and they remain a different class, for the lack of any other better word. Actually, it was not. So they came up, and actually what we tried doing, we launched a program which was actually talking about enabling, enriching, and energizing. And that's where, so enriching was around the trainings, the reskilling, which actually became the need. Energizing was wherein we involved their families, etc. Enabling was the piece wherein we actually received, and that's where the whole paradigm around the productivity or the ownership got changed. So anybody and everybody, they started contributing, and rather there were suggestions in terms of the regular EMS kind of meetings, the production management system which we have. So the old Kaizens which were not implemented, people actually took that up, and that's how they tried utilizing. So in a way, this pandemic brought the organization together in a much more solid, concrete way, and actually became a growth. I would say we were preparing for growth. So that was one part. Then coming to all the memes which Prakash you were talking about. So yeah, there were actually the production, the stocks were already available, and whatever requirement then subsequently came, it was done smoothly, because we were actually in a situation, what we experienced, or from my, I would say, the professional network, that everybody was in a situation, kuch kaam karte hain yaar, get out and let's do something. So that's where I think meeting up those spikes in demand was not even, I would say, a challenge worth mentioning.
Okay, thanks so much. I like the part of enrich and rescaling that you made. So Ajay, I'll come to you. Nilkamal, many people know you're the largest manufacturer in the world of molded furniture, right? I think people would not anticipate something like furniture, an Indian company, to be the largest manufacturers here. So for you, from having that kind of a workforce, how did that, and furniture again, one more area where, when suddenly the lockdown happened, are people buying, not buying? So how did that impact you? And how did you? What are the things that you did, or changes that you had to bring really for continuity?
Thanks, Prakash. As you said, like Nilkamal, many people will not aware that it's the largest producer of molded furniture. So every month we make 1 million chair, plastic chairs. And we are leader in for the plastic furniture and for the material handling business also. And last few years, we have also started steel metal furniture and the wooden furniture and mattresses also. So what happened, like our company operates with 10 factories across India with 4,000 workers. And this 4,000 workers, when I'm talking, is main of the 90% of them are all blue collar workers. So the first thing which we did is, like, we provide the accommodation and the food to these workers regularly. We have like workers colony where they stays, and so first thing is we like provided them like this assurance that none of you will lose your salaries and there will be no pay cut at your level. So even the work is there or not, you should be all stay here. You'll be getting your full salaries. You'll be getting the healthy food. You'll be getting the right accommodations. So the first assurance was given that to them, all of them. And company has taken care of that. Then the other thing, very important, like while you give this confidence to people that they are now will be getting the money and the food and all that, but there were still a lot of fear was there that time in the people's mind and their families also. So we had a lot of connect program with this people, blue collar. So I see this like a very transformational step which happened in the manufacturing, where the companies have started getting more connected to the blue collar employees, the contractual employees. Otherwise, like most of the time, companies does a lot of engagement program for their white collar employees, for their own operators. But this time, I see there's a major changes where like there are a lot of connect happened with the blue collar employees with their families, and we have a lot of call with their families where we give this confidence. Don't worry, the people are safe here. We are taking care of every necessary SOP guidelines which have been issued by government and WHO. So there will not be any case. And fortunately, so far in all our 10 factories, we have not a single case of COVID. And we have managed that very well. Now the other thing, what I see the changes that happened in the manufacturing and ABC is like which is innovation. So like when everything was stopped in March and like who will buy in plastic furnitures and all that, then we saw there's a need of like a lot of COVID centers are coming in BKC, in Mumbai, in Delhi, in Radha centers. So they all need a lot of beds. So we immediately developed the product in 2 weeks time. And then we supplied thousands of these beds to this jumbo COVID center across countries. So the innovation speed has ramped up. The kind of what I would like to say is like otherwise earlier there were a lot of silo working where like design will work with their own pace, manufacturing will work with their own pace, and supply chain. Now like everybody wrapped up together and took that as a purpose, and we have to like supply this work within 2 weeks of time. We we found it extraordinary. We were get covered in all the newspapers and all that for that. Like within the 2 weeks, the product was rolled out and we started supplying in the COVID time. So from April 15, three of my factories opened and started working full-fledged on that. So now the other changes which have come, like always in the manufacturing, there's this industrial health and safety rules are there, factory inspector rules are there, which you need to follow. Okay, but if you see practically, there are a lot of focus has come on the employees' health and safety now. Their hygiene levels have improved significantly because of this continuous use of sanitizer, keeping a distance, wearing a mask. So what positive change I see because of COVID? All other kind of diseases like a normal flu, viral and all that have come down significantly. People are more healthier at the workplace. If they don't have anybody, if not having COVID, they're more healthier now because they are not catching this kind of things, okay, in the group. They're taking more care. And when the person is healthier, he's more productive in the workplace. So he's able to put more energy, he's happier, and so that kind of changes we have seen in this. The other thing is, which is a major changes which are happening is like earlier in the manufacturing, I used to see like any one place worker can roam around the factories and go to the other place. Okay, so they were like a free plant concept. When you say free trade, and it's like a free plant, one can roam around anywhere. So now we started like a port concept where the person who is belongs to one area, he should be working in that area, stay there. Okay, so even in case if any symptoms or any cases comes, we know this is the area which we need to confine rather than like shutting down everything. And at the last, like which I'll further cover and detail, there's a lot of focus which have come in the manufacturing is on the digitization of information flow, so which is very important. Like there have been a lot of focus in manufacturing always through material automation, which we call like doing a lot of automation and improvement through lean manufacturing, Six Sigma for variability reduction. But information flow, like how the information is flowed through the manufacturing, it's never been so digitized in the manufacturing, where every machine data, every process parameters, every efficiencies are recorded digitally. So that is what we started focusing, and we are doing a lot of program and time. And we call it like now iLean. So it's an information lean management in information. So that's what all changes we see, like very positive changes which have happened because of COVID in the manufacturing post-COVID.
Thanks, Ajay. I think a couple of good points in terms of mapping. Yes, Ashish, go ahead.
Sorry, I missed one or two points, and I think it's important to bring the element here. So I think there is one thing which, with an experience, we realized in the pandemic. So we have one large business which is in energy and storage and the consumer appliance. Now these are very highly competitive and mature market. Now the industry doesn't grow by 40%, 30%, 45%, and to grow CAGR of 40%, 5 years, 6 years, it's a very difficult task to do that. In one of the segment, which is the energy storage segment, which is 25,000 crore category, it grows by 3%. To grow 40% is a humongous task. And what did we do? And I'll tell you, the psychological comfort what you bring in the employee's mind actually makes you win or lose the whole game. So the whole variable angle which I spoke, it was in the whole group, there are only some 200, 300 odd people were impacted with that. And it's a very minuscule amount. It was largely to build this sense of ownership in the company. And in the give back, what we said is that you take this money back anyway, and we have given that money back during the year. We also offered is that if you suppose contribute 2 lakhs rupees of variable, and anyway that variable was notional, if you don't want that variable, we'll give you 1.5 to 2 times in the form of stock. So we didn't want to keep anything with us. So, and we said that anything over and above is a shareholder problem. It's not your problem. One is that. Second is that during the labor migration, one of the very large factory, almost everybody moved to Bihar, UP, etc., etc. We did a massive work in terms of reskilling the factory and produced 40% more than the last year. Now that only happens only if you're able to give very high level of psychological comfort in that. And it was largely because so look, if you get COVID impacted, you get COVID impacted. You can't do anything about it. But what you do with it, the information, and how do you communicate with empathy is what made the difference. I think that was the masterpiece of Locate Manufacturing, and that's the biggest takeaway of mine through this manufacturing process. If India has to really go up in the right of the manufacturing value chain in the world with a low cost of manufacturing, I think this is the cutting edge thing we need to do. And I think psychologically it makes a lot of difference.
Sure. So, I hear you, Ashish, but then there's some uncomfortable questions as well, right? I think one of the questions that's facing all of us is employee health and safety has never been such a big agenda point the way it is today, right? It gets discussed at the top level, and not just employee health and safety. It is the safety and well-being of not just the employer and of his extended family as well, because that starts impacting us. Now, you need to take care of that. At the same end, there is also a question of productivity. How do you get more out of that person? Now, how do you balance? Now, I'll first come to you, Abhishek, and then to Ashish and Ajay. So, how do you balance between employee safety and health and productivity? Where is the balance? Can we find a balance, or is it one versus the other?
Actually, what we realize that these are not contradictory. These are actually complementary objectives. So the way I would look at that, initially there was like a social distancing. We didn't know how to work and all. Those were the times wherein the processes were to be redrawn. Safety has always been a priority, because at the end of the day, unless you provide that, and that's where the critical thing which has actually happened, that this pandemic has helped the normal operator or contractual worker. Ajay very rightly picked up that there were different kind of notions, as well as their kind of priorities which they were having, or ways of working, which they became health conscious. So something which was seen as a dashboard being run by the factory manager or a safety guy, that do the safety walk, do identify near-miss, do this. So something which was seen as very niche kind of a thing, everybody started participating. So I would say that participation has increased like an inflection point. That's one part. So second thing, what has happened, and I will build what Ajay and then subsequently Ashish also tried to cover, that this engagement with the family, reaching out to them in this hour of crisis and all that stuff. So somewhere that agenda actually goes beyond, and few of the practices have been wherein in some organization I have seen that accident videos, or once somebody loses the limb, those are actually being run at the canteen, and or those are shared whenever the family day is happening, so that the family starts owning a bit of the agenda. That's what happens to the person once a major accident occurs. So I see that actually more becoming a co-owned agenda than by only being a management priority. Number one. Number two, productivity, as I mentioned earlier, Prakash. It is a paradigm change, because the thing is that the way people came together and the way organizations have responded in general. So I'm not saying that salary cut or that thing which Ashish also clarified, that it is more in terms of making them a kind of a stakeholder into the whole thing. It was not a cost cutting exercise. It was more we win together or we lose together. But notwithstanding that, the way we responded as an industry, I would say as a nation, has brought us a bit closer. And that's where, from that monitored productivity to actually something which is more engaged one, wherein people try to contribute, that's what is happening. Now the challenge is, and that's what we are trying to do for last 3-4 months, that whatever are the gains of 2020 in terms of these tangibles or intangibles, how to actually institutionalize that. Because at the end of the day, this is like kind of a training hangover, or anything that something has happened, in response we reacted in a particular manner. If there is a concerted effort, we try to institutionalize, the gains are forever. And maybe then this whole productivity or this agenda is owned by employees actually. That's the paradigm which we are looking at actually.
Sure. So thanks, Abhishek. Ashish, again, over to you on this productivity versus employee self-health benefit. You spoke of empathy earlier, right? So now empathy to what extent is the question that sometimes people ask, right?
Okay. Look at it this way, and I will give you my personal example of. So I worked in three different industry: manufacturing, consumer goods, financial institution for a very long time. Now in a diversified business group. So every crisis teaches you something. And let me give you analogy around that. And I don't have a real answer to that. In 2008, when the financial crisis happened in the world, people started to talk about the financial health and how do you take care of money in more prudent manner. Everybody learned over a period of time, and if you look at 2006 to 8, how people one would view their money, and today how protective one is there today now, with little more vigilance is what has changed. I think every crisis teaches something, and there are no rule book or playbook available around that. Now the productivity versus the health and safety, I think, let me put it this way: there may be places where the health and safety was not taken as a paramount. Now they will be forced to take the health and safety as a paramount. Now look at the nation population. So today we have an advantage of a very young population which is employable, and they have an aspirations to buy things, they have an aspirations to do things in their life. I think this is what we lot many times we forget, and we are unable to capitalize. Go to really tier 3 city, tier 4 town, look at what kind of people, how do you skill them. So this is more deeper than what this is a very peripheral way of looking at productivity versus health. If this crisis has forced companies and everyone has to look at health as a priority, so it's a very good thing. So all crisis teaches you something. The crisis is also giving us an opportunity to place ourselves right up in the manufacturing chain. Up in the manufacturing chain will only happen, it benefits everyone. And I'll give you an example of another. When the 91 the liberalization happened, I was in school at that point in time. The level of the comfort everybody used to enjoy, right from a driver to the lower pop strata of the society, today what they derive today is far different. So give us little time. I think industry will respond very positively. Most of the people in the industry including the general public have responded very, very positively and responsively. Uh, Productivity versus the health and safety, I'm not worried about it. This will get taken care automatically. I think people are also a little more careful about it, and organizations have also learned how to deal with it. So it will happen.
Sure.
I don't see that as a problem.
So Ajay, the same question to you in a different manner. Now there is a balance sheet. There is a bottom line that we all chase, right? And there is, Ashish knows that there's an investor community who has pressure on you for the bottom line as well. Those things are the reality of the game. Now with that, when you're looking at health and safety, where you have to probably have that certain distance and all of that, so it would mean a little more investment. Now, to how far do you go? So have you been able to find a balance? How's that worked out for you?
So first, I will support the statement which Abhishek has made. These are all complementary: health and safety and the productivity of people. And again, I'll repeat the statement which I said: if employees, especially the blue collars who are working by their own hand at the shop floor, if they're healthier, they will be more productive at the workplace. There's no doubt on that, and we have seen that there's a significant increase in the health quotient of these employees, where now we are seeing a very less absenteeism, very less unplanned leaves, because now they are not keeping well, and they are not able to report to the work, because they are all become very conscious on that. And now, because they are healthier, whenever they comes 100%, they are fit, and they are focusing a lot on this, getting the right food supplements, immunity, keeping them fresh, taking the better sleep, because they have all understood this. These are the required things to have a better immunity. That's all reflecting at their workplace also. So this safety and health is helping to have the more productivity. And the other way, if we see now, because of the social distancing at the workplace and all, you see there's more focus is coming on the work. So people who are working on the machines and all, they are more focused in their area. They are not willing, say, spend more time, and earlier okay, if I'm not able to complete this, I'll get overtime, and I should think, let's do it at the regular speed. But now people are conscious; they want to complete their work in the time. there's a significant increase in the productivity we see at the shop floor by employees, and despite putting the same regular 8 hours. So the focus of concentration is very, very significant, and this health and safety is helping them a lot. Other thing is like what happened during this for the business continuity. Suppose if somebody gets the COVID, what happened to them? Do we have a backup plan available? So all this, there a lot of focus has come on the multi-scaling, and there a lot of focus has come practically on the training of employees. So those things are also helping for getting the better productivity at the shop floors. People are now, instead of only focusing on their limited area of work, because of their multi-skill, they understand the impact of their work on the previous steps and the forward steps. Okay. They're more aware now. So these trainings have also helped in getting the more productivity at the shop floor.
Sure, and you know, I'll just change the topic now to automation and technology, digitization, because that's one area which is going to impact the manufacturing industry big time. And I see questions that are coming. There's one question on digitization as well. So if we can probably move to that topic. So, one of our customers, Amar Raja Batteries, they earlier thought that the blue-collar workforce does not need any engagement platform. But when this happened, they realized they need a platform. But then they were able to immediately give an engagement platform to people strong to all of them. So there are certain norms we have in our mind when we're doing technology or implementation, right? We think blue-collar workforce needs this, white-collar workforce needs that. And I know you guys touched upon the topic. So 2 questions here to all 3 of you, starting with Ashish. Technology perspective, what are the how is technology working to automate the complete, the shop floor? Do you see a large push happening there? Second is, what are some of the technological advances that you're doing to keep in touch with the employee as well? Engagement, how is that working? Because you can't travel like you used to travel earlier from plant to plant anymore. That's not a reality. That's a different reality today. So both of these elements, shop floor automation and automation related to managing an employee. Ashish.
Sure, thanks. So I'll answer it in 2 parts. One is that there is an automation. So there's a difference. This whole digitization is misunderstood. There's something called robotization of the work process of the shop floor, and there is something called digitization. So digitization of processes is largely putting the paper and pencil process into workflow and doing it. But the real digitization or the automation is the robotics, and can robots do or the machines can do all the. I mean, if you look at, you gave an Amar Raja example, it's a battery manufacturing is an extremely complicated manufacturing process, possibly the most complicated I have come across. Now, these are 2 separate line items to be dealt with. There are automations in that. So that it has to be dealt in terms of a cost benefit analysis, the cost of robotization and the cost of doing a manual labor and manual intervention. That cost, I think the arbitrage is yet not figured out fully in India at this point in time, but which is more beneficial at this point in time. If you look at the Indian manufacturing system, it's largely manual and the human driven, because the cost of manufacturing is still very manageable, and that's where we are saying that we will be there. So we have to look at it from a cost angle. This and the precision and the quality for sure. The second is the engagement level with the digitization. Now, my firm belief is that, and that's what we have. We also use People Strong platform. We do everything. But I think I may not be able to travel on the shop floor, but my local manager, local factory manager, local unit manager, local supply chain managers, they are there in that point in time. So the physical connect, even if without shaking hand, what gets built, the community feeling around that at that particular location. So the earlier the macro engagement used to happen from the corporate used to drive, and that's how it. So from a macro, this has become very micro level of the engagement. I think that brings a lot of sense in employees. So we do a lot of micro level shop floor engagement with workmen. Take care of their need at this, what they're needing at that point in time. This is where we're largely focusing on. And as I said, that we were able to replace almost all our blue-collar workmen in a very short period of time, reskill them. That didn't happen because it was automated. That happened because the humans were there at that point in time to do that. So I would want to stay here. Is that no matter what tool we give, humans can be only dealt by humans. Technology will never be able to replace human emotions. You have to deal with that, and you have to stay in that. Information dissemination can happen. Today, everybody has a WhatsApp, everybody has a Genie, everybody has some other platform. Information dissemination will happen, but the micro level engagement is the critical and will remain forever. Is my take on this.
Yeah, I know. Before I go to Abhishek, in one of the forums, somebody had asked me once that will HR work go away with all automation in HR technology as well? And I said that as long as if technology can get empathy and intuition, maybe it will go away. But we don't see a day when empathy, as long as empathy and intuition are there in human beings, will all be relevant. So Abhishek, is this automation agenda in India going slow because of the fact that we have such a large population which is available at a cheaper cost? Or are you also pushing for automation and robotics the way Ashish was talking about?
So we are pushing for, so there are three aspects to it. And I would pick up where you left that HR job going to the robo or automation. The point is, what do you think HR job is? If HR operations is HR job, yes, it can go. And it certain things would get into workflow management. You empower people. Certain things they can do by themselves. You don't need to supervise. But that's not the HR job you and I know. In terms of the real automation or digitization, I would see it. I would further drill down what Ashish explained in terms of the robotics or the real automation. There are two parts to it. One, actually putting systems around, making it consistent, driven by process, wherein as the volumes would come, the SMEs would go into that mode. And that's where a bit of standardization would happen. And that standardization may have a bit of elements around some automation, not the robotics. So population may have a challenge with regard to the arbitrage which or the ROI which Ashish was mentioning, that it doesn't make sense because I am having a cheaper labor, I am having that skilled manpower, and fine, we produce instead of making it heavily capital intensive. What exactly is needed, that the people dependence in terms of the repetitive process, that need to be, and Ajay would be a better person in terms of explaining the nuances there, but that's where the automation is needed. That's where a bit of what I should say, that reflects that where in terms of the process efficacy we have reached, what is the consistency and what is the kind of the standardization. And there is a lot of scope around it. In terms of the HR piece, yes, I think it's a misnomer. We have started using this word digitization. We are actually nowhere near that. But yeah, what exactly is happening that in terms of the communication platform, social media platform, whatever or information dissemination which is happening at a real-time basis, we have become a bit used to. And that's a good step because that's where we are trying to break the silos or trying to break the barriers or being virtually available.
Sure. So Ajay, same question to you before I go to audience question. I mean, you spoke of innovation as well, where you said in a span of 2 weeks, you were able to look at the situation and turn around something, and the silos within the organization got broken. So what drives such innovation? Is it automation? Is it digitization that drives innovation? Or how do you look at the automation and robotics process at Nilkamal?
First thing is that there need to be a clarity in everybody's mind. So what actually we want to achieve. So when we say automation, there's a lot of myth that this automation will take away the jobs, okay, especially the blue collar jobs. And even like, as you said, the question for about HR also, say if we implement softwares like a PeopleStrong platform and all that, there are a lot of activities which will be going away from what HR is traditionally doing. But I will see in a different perspective, and I would like to give a different perspective to this thought. If you see globally, we, as Ashish also said, we are a consumption-led economy, okay? But at the same time, we have to see a lot of opportunity for us to do a lot of export also. What China has mastered in the last 2-3 decades, and then become a global export hub and supplying to all European and American countries. What we are still like at a very nascent stage of manufacturing in India. Our processes are still very inefficient, where a lot of jobs are manuals which can be easily automated. And this will not eat up the job, they will basically create more opportunities. Our cost will come down, so we'll be more able to supply to the global other countries also because we are efficient. So we cannot have like 100 of people employed and then say we are providing jobs to 100 people and become inefficient. Better to have efficient and employ job 1,000 people because now your productivity is several times and you are able to export also to several countries. Now, so there has to be focus of this automation in improving the productivity because that's the need of the time. As a India, if you really want to make in India successful, we have to be really efficient in terms of our manufacturing costs, our productivity level, our quality levels. Now, so a lot of area where we are putting this automation and innovation is like in the quality checks. Still, there are a lot of like common approach in if like I'll say in the worker chalta hai, and if I'll talk to like many global people, say like Jugaad is there in India, where like people will say, okay, this is fine quality and somehow, and there's a concept of AUD, approval under deviation, is very common in India. Okay, so why not we are able to meet those quality standards, and what kind of automation we can do? So whatever promising we are doing for those quality levels are going to the consumers, and we really improve, automate those processes. So I see this automation will really help. This will create more and more jobs in India rather than eating away, because we'll be more efficient, we'll be more productive, and the global people will see our quality as the best quality, that we can supply the same quality what China can supply, what Vietnam can supply, what Thailand can supply. They will get the same confidence on Indian quality levels also. So manufacturing really need a lot of automation, and Ashish also mentioned robotics also in terms of like material handling and processes, but at the same time, it is again on the information flow also and digitization of that. People spend a lot of time in India in asking for information. If you see any real-time situation, you will be calling many people and asking for some information. You will be asking for presentation. You will be asking for data. I think we should spend our time in data analytics rather than asking for information and data. So the data should be in an analytical form, should be available for us to improve it, rather than spending 6 hours out of 8 hours in putting this data in a nice format. So there are a lot of scopes are there in that way.
Sure. Sounds good. I think we spent 47 minutes discussing what we had to discuss. So, Shruti, do you want to pick up the questions now?
Absolutely, Prakash. So let me start with the first question, which is come by Richardson Sampson. He's asking, what are industry doing to drive gender balance on the shop floor?
Gender balance. Anyone want to pick up gender balance on the shop floor? Is it an agenda that is on top of people's mind today? Do we really
I think,
look at that in that manner?
Yeah, I think it is. And it has been in the discussion for quite some time in terms of, I remember the earlier very IR intensive days, it was that the kind of the maturity or kind of a calm the fairer sex would actually bring onto the shop floor. That was certainly one of the points being discussed during even those days. So it has been an agenda, though I think an impediment has been that the sunset and the sunrise clause in the Factories Act, which now with the new codes getting implemented would address it to a great extent. And obviously, as society, the way we have been maturing, and you would have seen that MG Hector ad wherein on the Women's Day. So I think it is moving to this bit of serious steps being taken instead of very, I would say, some ticks in the box which were being done earlier. So certainly, yes, it's an agenda. It's agenda on the top of our mind.
So Prakash, I want to give a different perspective around it. So if you look at the largest unorganized sector in the labor-intense industry is the construction sector, and construction sector is the largest employer of the women on the shop floor. Okay, so many times I think there has been a lack of effort, by concentrated effort by the industry as a whole, to take this agenda forward. And I take this example very because that's a very hard job. Mitti patthar utha karke, go on the floor. It's a very physically hard job to do. So I think there is one element in that, and you have all migrant laborers working around that, where there is a concentration of effort which is happening. If you look at electronics manufacturing, where there's a lot of precision required in terms of working, so there I see a lot of work. There is a lot of concentrated effort being done in having women. But I think movement has started. But if you ask, and I would not totally agree with Abhishek's point of view on the labor laws and things like that. But the same labor law applies in various industries. So it's a mindset issue. I think it should change. And some changes happens because of law also. I think, I mean, it should happen. I mean, I don't have a concrete answer, but it's more than alibi for not having them.
Sure. And there's one interesting question which is coming up. I want to show that we answer that, which is on compensation for blue collared workforce. If you guys, if you three of you could give your views. One is the question is from Nitya Gandhi, who's asking, how should we look at compensation for blue collared workforce? What is an advisable route for compensation increase? Should we increase the fixed salary, or just keep the salary above minimum wage and disburse higher bonus? What is the best way to manage compensation for blue collared workforce? Views, please.
Look, at the end of the day, the ecosystem has to be equitable. So the point is, slowly and gradually, we are moving towards the typical demand and supply game. I'm sure, not sure about you, Prakash, but when Ajay would have started career, or Ashish would have started career, there were salary ranges, there were fixed kind of increments which were coming. That's where we all started our career, white collar, even in the senior management grade. That's what used to happen, which gone away because it is driven by the market. Same situation in terms of the skilled workforce, if not already, is coming as far as blue collar is concerned. More or less same situation. Yeah, unskilled labor, contractual one, which Ajay was mentioning, that's where still it's a demand supply game, which is more around the demography or the other. So that is the direction. Directionally, if you are talking that what route should we take, B, if you want to variabilize the pay, there should be parameters which the guy can influence. And that's the approach which we have been taking, whether it was in automobile industry or whether here in FMCG. That if variabilize what can be influenced. Otherwise, minimum wage should not be seen for a blue collar reference point. That is a blue collar reference point for the menial labor, which is not a skilled job. So that's the mindset I think we need to correct.
Sure. Ajay, any views on this?
I would like to add a few things on this, what Abhishek has said. One is like, for the blue collar people, okay, there are two kind of blue collar. One is like your on payroll organization, okay. Another is like which are on the contract payrolls also. So for the contract payroll, what I think is that we should pay minimum wages. That is the minimum we should pay, okay. And then over and above that, it should be paid based on the skill they carry, okay. If they're able to like what we have started where we have started rating them, whether they can train others, okay, whether they can like take care of the pre-process and the post-process also, they have that understanding. So based on various skills, there's a further element which have been added to the contract labors. For the operator level, what we have started, which are on the company payroll, is a performance management system for the blue collar employees also for the payroll, like what kind of safety measurements they are following for the housekeeping, for the quality. So all these parameters have been there, objective based, this performance have been put in place, and we are measuring on that.
Sure. So I'm just cognizant of time. I want to ensure that I get one quick word from all of you on one last question. I'm going to combine a couple of questions and ask you one final one. Each one of you can take a minute and answer, starting with Ashish. So what are 2 or 3 things according to you that manufacturing industries need to do to secure their future? Any specific focus area now that we're into complete unlock, vaccinations, hopefully over the next 4 to 5 months, 70% of the country is going to be vaccinated. So how can manufacturing industries secure their future? Any top 2 or 3 points from a talent perspective that you want to talk about? Ashish, starting with you.
So I think there are two things which we have to do as an industry. We have to do, and there is a large opportunity thrown in front of us to become a China plus one nation in the world for all kind of manufacturing. I mean, just latest is that iPhone 12 will get manufactured in India. So right from a high end manufacturing to a mass manufacturing products. There are two things I think we need to do as a we have to start to build a ecosystem and partner in the public PPP model to build the skill academy across the nation and various types of skill academy. And unless until look, China actually worked very hard on the skilling of their workforce in last 20, 30, 40 years. I think as an industry we have to start to think about how do we skill the people at different level in the country. If you are able to do that, and we keep our labor union. I mean that why do people become unionized? Because there is, if you suppress them quite a lot, and which is when then comes up. So if you just treat all of them is in a right manner and start working on the skilling, I think we should be in the right spot to do the of course we are in a consumption-led economy, so that will continue to happen, but a large opportunity exists outside India, and which is where we should focus upon. These two things, if we get it right, rest everything will follow, right? Compensation, etc. It's all basis the economics. I think that there are two things, and that's where largely we falter. The third is that I think government is taking a lot of structural changes direction wise in the simplification of the labor laws and the code wages, etc. Of course, many more things has to happen, but political system anyway we can't comment about it. Besides that, if we just focus on these two things, we'll have a very meaningful work in the manufacturing.
Thank you. Thanks, Ashish. Abhishek, one minute word from you on this. What are the things that we need to do?
So completely agree that the mindset issue around seeing blue collar differently, because till the time we continue seeing them differently, they remain a different animal, and that's where manufacturing won't get that kind of boost. Skill is certainly so. I'll go just one step back from what Ashish said. One is the skill development institute. That's absolutely fine, but somewhere education policy, and I think that's the right step being taken. That vocation-oriented education, because that's where the foundation gets laid on, and then subsequently people can build on that. I'll just add that to what Ashish. Otherwise, yes, we need to gear up. There is an opportunity. There is a very clear opportunity which we have as a nation. And I think we seem to be moving in the right direction. The only issue is around the pace. We need to move pretty fast, because the world evolves, and the COVID has shown us that whatever in terms of the digitization or evolution process, actually it got sped up by at least 5 years.
Sure. So thanks, Abhishek. Ajay, 1 minute word from you, please.
Yeah. So I see that there's a huge opportunity for us. Like we see billions of dollars of imports we are doing, say in furniture, in toys, and all those areas. So if we have to really produce at a cost-effective rate in India with the best quality what we are importing, we have to be efficient. And these efficiencies need to be seriously looked by manufacturing companies in all areas, whether it could be like Ashish and Abhishek said, by skill development of the people. It should be by digitization and automation. And manufacturing needs really a lot of focus, where people now should start taking efficiently very seriously. We have to come to a global standard level to be really competent in this area.
Sure. Thanks, Ajay. I think quickly to sum up, I think, three things all of you said. Ashish, picking up from what you said about skilling, ensuring that we're skilling our people appropriately. Abhishek spoke of ensuring that the blue-collar workforce are not seen as a different animal, treat them equally so that we can get better out of them. Ajay is talking about meeting global standards, right? So thank you so much for answering all of these questions. I feel I'm the lucky player who had the three aces: Ashish, Abhishek, and Ajay. Thank you so much for all the points. Over to you, Shruti.
Thank you, Prakash, for moderating all the insights so well from all our speakers, and thank you, Ashish, Ajay, and Abhishek, for sharing all those learning pointers and insights. I'm sure our audience had to gain a lot of information today. With this, we would also like to thank our partner, People Strong, for partnering with us and organizing this session. For our attendees, it has been a pleasure hosting you all for this session. Stay tuned to your inbox for more details and information on today's webcast session. And with this, we conclude today's session. Thank you and so much for joining us, and have a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.